And welcome everybody, it's Dan. Hope you're well today. Start of a fresh new week. We are on the 22nd of November, and so it means we're coming into Christmas in about a week's time. Anyway, hope you're well. We've got a lot to get through in today's session, so let's just crack straight onto it. So, first off, most importantly, something that I feel has been misconstrued over the last few years, and it's kind of like what some people call hustle porn, or this idea that you're supposed to be working 18-hour days. And obviously some people choose to work 18-hour days. Elon Musk, for example, I know some people don't like Elon Musk. They say it's unfair that someone has that much money. And yet I certainly wouldn't want to be Elon Musk, that's for sure. Not working 18-hour days, 7 days a week for the last, 5 years? That's not my idea of a good time. But Elon's on his path to putting man on Mars, and you know all the other stuff that's going to go off that, being an interplanetary species. So you got to love that. But like, I don't want to be working lots of hours, and I would hope that you don't want to be working lots of hours either. I don't think that's what we're put on this planet for, is just to work all these hours. But for some reason we have this idea that you should be working all these hours, and we call it hustle porn, and it should be, you know, to the grind, no days off. And I kind of used to believe in that too. Maybe it's because when I was younger, I was able to put in those hours. And I remember saying to my dad, you know, I should be putting in these hours now while I'm still young and got the energy, because I might not have that later. And here we are later, and I haven't got that energy. So maybe when you're 18 to 30, let's say from 20 to 30, that's the time. I had 2 jobs. I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, up to the age of 29, and I left work at the age of 29 and ended up working for myself. And boy, you just ended up working more hours when you started working for yourself, when you first got started. But I don't think that's conducive to your health. I don't think it's conducive to your mental health. I don't think it's conducive to your relationships right now. And we've got to get off this idea that you should be working all hours, because that's the dumb way of going through life. You know, if what's that saying? If all it took was hard work, every mother on the planet would be wealthy, something like that, right? And then there's this other argument about, which I see quite a lot of the time, about landlords, and they say things like, oh well, landlords, you know, you don't work very hard for your money. That's the whole point. Like, you've missed the point. That is the whole point. We don't work hard for our money. We're not supposed to. The asset generates the income, and it doesn't have to be property. It could be stocks and shares. If I buy Marks and Spencer's stocks and shares, I'm not going to Marks and Spencer's and stocking shelves for them. That's the whole point of buying the asset, is that I don't have to work. I don't want to work. It's not this, you know, we have this idea that you should be out and working all the time. It's like, what are you talking about? We're not put on this earth to work 40-hour weeks, have 2 days off, and then go back to work on a Monday. I don't believe that. And if you do believe that, then that's fine. That's up to you. We all have our individual belief systems. Come back to me in 50 years. Let me know how that went for you. I don't want to be doing that. I don't want my kids doing that. I don't want my clients doing that. I don't want my family doing that. And I don't want you doing that. That is not the way to go through life. It's just not. And so we've got to stop normalising this idea that we should be, you know, working your fingers to the bone. I remember being in a pub, maybe about 20 years ago, actually, and saw a guy that I'd not seen since school. And he looked at my hands and he went, look at that, not a day's work in your life, have you? That's what he said. Not a day's work. And at the time, I was doing like 2 jobs. I was trying to start up a part-time business, buying and selling second-hand computers and so on. We were doing some internet stuff because it was just coming through then. And it's like, yeah, but my work is different than yours. Just because I'm not, I don't know what he did, plastering or plumbing, you know, it doesn't mean that the work's not arduous in some way. But the whole point is that none of the work should be arduous. None of the work should be done. It should be done by other people. And of course, I understand, well, not everybody can do what you do. Totally get that as well. But you're not everybody. And not everybody will want to think like that. Some people will want to go out and chop wood for a living. That's awesome if that's what they want to do. But I know for a fact But most people don't want to do that. Most people don't want to go to work. And the only reason that they actually go to work is because they have to bring in the money to pay for the bills. If that wasn't the case, and come on, let's be upfront and let's be really honest here. If you could find a way of not having to work, would you do it? Of course you bloody would. You might still choose after that point to do some work because, idle thumbs makes devil's work, I think is one of the sayings. And you've got to do something. It's one of the reasons why we have a digital marketing agency. We could just rely on the property income and so on and so forth. But first of all, I've got to do something. I've been in that situation where I did nothing. And it's great to begin with. And after 12 months, it's boring as heck. Because one of my friends said, well, if it was me, Dan, I'd just be playing golf all day. And I said, yeah, who with? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'd not thought of that. Exactly. Look, you don't have to work hours and hours and hours. You should be working smarter, not harder. And sometimes that smarter means moving somebody else onto doing those hours that you don't want to do. So, I don't work a huge amount of hours. And in all honesty, there's not a line between work and not work. Is this work right now? I actually quite enjoy doing this. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy the emails that we get. And obviously, I don't have time to reply to everybody. We get quite a few. But I enjoy this. So is this work or is this enjoyment? Does it pay? Well, I'm not getting paid for this directly, but indirectly, somebody might sign up with our digital marketing agency to help them with their digital marketing. So we get paid indirectly for this. But even that is at work if we really enjoy it and we're able to go out and really help people. And I actually don't think it is. But there's not a line between work and not work. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. Now, when I turn 80, not for some time, another 30 years, but when I turn 80, will I still be doing this in a hologram graphic type of world? Who knows, in a virtual reality, in the metaverse? I don't know. But I expect I'll be doing something. If you think I'm just sitting on a yacht in my 80s, and doing nothing, I don't think that's really going to happen. I will probably work till the day I die. But the only reason for that is because that's a choice and because I'm enjoying what I'm doing, as opposed to having to work to bring in the cash. I said it on a couple of podcasts ago. The problem isn't that you have to... the problem isn't that you're going to die at 65, okay? The problem is you're going to live till 105 and you haven't got any assets and you've only got a crappy pension and you've got no income and you're going to be in the cheapest nursing home possible with the worst care on the planet. And that's the problem. So now is the time where you've got to actually start getting smart about how you're going to work. And if you're utilizing a virtual assistant, awesome. If you've got somebody else that can do the grunt work while you go out and do all the fun stuff, awesome. And that's what we do. We've got graphic designers and video editors and SEO and website designers and content coordinators and copywriters. There's very little work that I actually do. That's because we've got all the grunt work being done by the people who are much more educated and experienced than I am. Across that, that wide spectrum of graphics, video, I can do all of it, but I'm not very good at it, The other people who've gone and got degree level education are much, much better at video editing. That's why we employ them. And when we edit videos, you're not getting me editing them. We can do it, drop stuff in, put some music on it and so on. It's quite a lot of fun. I used to really enjoy that. But after a while, that got boring. So this is about you working a lot smarter, and these longer hours should just be out of the window. There was a story from last year, maybe 2-3 years ago actually, and it was a guy and he was earning like 80 grand a year, and he was doing computer programming, and then he outsourced it to someone and he paid them 35 grand a year. So this guy's making whatever the difference is, what is that, £55,000 a year, and his boss found out and then he got sacked. But I'm like, that's such an awesome way of doing it. When I worked at Dell, 100 grand a year, I wish I'd have had someone overseas to pre-book my appointments, to follow up my appointments. I mean, we had an internal whose job it was to do that, but actually create new opportunities for me to go in and sell, mop up the sales and add them onto my list. Nobody would have known about that. And they'd have been like, Dan, how are you doing all this marketing and all this stuff? And that's what we should have done, looking back at that. That's working smarter, not working harder. And that's why I don't think long hours should be normalised. The hustle culture is a bad thing. Now, some of this, of course, is also dependent on where you live. So like London, for example, The culture in London, maybe it's changed. It's been a number of years since I've been there, but as far as I remember, the culture in London was you finish at 5:30, but you might as well keep working till 7:30 because you're having drinks. And I remember speaking to a friend of mine at the time, like, well, why don't people just leave at 5:30? Oh, it's frowned upon. And I'm like, it's frowned upon? What time do they work till? 9 till 5:30. But they don't leave at 5:30. No, because it's frowned upon. So they're doing extra work they're not being paid for? Yeah. Because it's frowned upon? Yeah. It just blows the mind. It's just not normal. And so some of this can be cultural based as well, cultural being London. Because, in Leeds, you go home from work, you get changed, you have a shower, you eat some food, and then you're back out. In London, you can't go home and come back out because it takes you 2 hours to do all that. So by the time you got home, it's time to come back. You haven't got time to do it. So you go straight out from work. And so that's why some of those hours are extended. But it's still hustle culture. It's still this hustle porn that we're trying to get away from. Work smarter, not harder. Okay. Oh, I do like getting excited about that stuff. Okay, next up, let's talk about organic marketing. And I have quite a few conversations with this, with potential people who are wanting to come on for book strategy sessions. And then we get on a call and they're like, yeah, now I want to go into Facebook ads. And I'm like, well, what's your business? And they tell me what the business is. And I say, well, have you sold anything yet? And they go, no, I've not sold anything. And I'm like, okay, why haven't you sold anything? Oh, because I need Facebook ads. And I'm like, no, you don't. You don't need Facebook ads yet. You need to sell something. You need to prove that the business is viable. And most people haven't got a viable business. They think they have a viable business, but they haven't. If it was viable, you'd make some sales without having to spend a lot of money. So to begin with, I don't believe that you should be spending a huge amount of money on your marketing. Now, that might put some people off using our services, and that's fine. We've got actually another really good value priced service coming out in the next week or so, and it might help them. But to begin with, you've got to prove that your business has the capability of actually closing some business. And if it hasn't, you shouldn't be spending money that you're not earning back. The whole point of Facebook ads is for every pound you spend, you earn £1 and a penny, £1 and 10 pence, £1 and 50, £2 back, £4 back. That's the whole purpose of Facebook ads. So forget about that for now. Move your business and start running organic traffic. Now, the downside to organic traffic is that it actually takes longer. If we create a Facebook ad for you, you don't really even need to do that much. We create all the images, all the advert, we create the copy, the call to action, the landing page, and we just, we might run the same or very similar adverts for the next 6 months. Sometimes we have to update and change the adverts because they go stale and so on. But you don't have to do anything. Really easy, right? But it costs you money. It costs you money for the management of the ads, for the creation of the landing pages, for creation of the ads and so on. And then the actual ad spend as well. But you're still not proving anything until you actually start spending money. So we would much prefer to move people over to organic marketing first. And in organic marketing, you still might get a landing page, you still get images and so on, but now you're driving traffic to a converting landing page. And now you're starting to prove that actually what you're trying to do actually works. Because most people don't know if it works or not, which is crazy. And yet that is the way that people actually run their business, or are trying to run their business. And before you know it, they blink. They spent $4,000 on Facebook ads. They've had 0 leads, 0 phone calls. The traffic wasn't relevant. It wasn't targeted traffic. It was completely incorrect. And it's because most people don't know what they're doing. So start off with organic traffic, because when you start getting organic traffic and then it starts to convert, the next stage then is to run Facebook ads. And now you've got data. Because the organic traffic will tell you, well, these types of organic traffic, that didn't work. But this type of organic traffic to this type of landing page with this type of offer, that's what's going to work. And then, using that information, you then start to run Facebook ads. Let me just grab a quick drink. So then you start to run Facebook ads, and now all you're doing is just scaling up your ability to close clients. And so that's why you should be starting off with organic marketing. And actually, one of the things that puts people off from paying a company like ours to run their organic marketing is to say things like, well, why would I pay you when I can do it for free? I can go live for free. I can create images on Canva, and I can do that for free of charge. And you're absolutely right, you can. But what happens is a couple of things. One is it's crap. Normally, unless you're a degree educated graphic designer, let's face it, it's not going to be great. Plus, you're going to get burnt out, because how many images do you need to create, and how many little videos do you need to create, and how exhausting is it creating all these images time and time again? Even though you might allocate the time, which most people don't still do, they then get just exhausted from creating all these images and having to come up with all the taglines and headlines and calls to action and copy. It just takes an inordinate amount of time. So some people will go, no, I'm not going to do that. And I totally get it, and I wouldn't do it to begin with either. I wouldn't pay someone to begin with. I would do it myself, as crap as it was. And when we first started our digital marketing agency, it looked like someone had just sneezed Canva. Achoo! Canva everywhere. But that's how we got started, because I was the guy that was doing it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't brilliant. And then we recruited in the degree educated and highly experienced graphic designers that we have on board. And suddenly our product set increases its level of quality hugely. Yet, if you're still going out and creating Canva, the quality is not going to be there, and then you're going to get burnt out. So as soon as you possibly can, you need to move over to using somebody to start creating your organic content. And that's where we can come in. But your job is better off chasing or following up potential leads. It's coming up with new product ideas, making contact with previous customers. That's really where your job should be. Coming up with new ideas and creating new images, that should be somebody else's idea. Give it to the grunts. That's us. Give us the grunt work so that we can go out and create really high quality stuff and actually drive a lot of traffic that you can then follow up. And so that's why you should be using organic marketing first. Okay, let's talk about 2022. 2021's been weird, hasn't it? 2020 has been just as weird. For me, it all started with Kobe's death in 2020 in February, and then it just went all downhill. We could see COVID come in, and here we are 18 months later, and it's all a bit of a I'm trying to find a way of explaining what it is without swearing, and I'm struggling. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it? That's the nicest way of doing it. So what's 2022 going to have in store for us then? Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, across the board, obviously prices are going up. I was just giving my cleaner a pay rise, for example. Rents are on the way up. We're keeping our content packages about the same price because we're able to. Salaries haven't actually increased much. And so, depending on where you are, will determine what's in store for you. So if you're an employee, you're not getting a pay rise. Even though everything else is going up, like you might squeeze a 2 or 3% pay rise, which in real terms isn't a pay rise if inflation's 4 to 6%. And I'm not even convinced it's as low as that, even though that's what they tell us. I think it's probably much higher than that. I saw something on the ONS saying that rental prices have only increased 1.3%, not the 13% or 6%, whatever it was, that Rightmove or Zoopla said it is. And I'm like, ONS are a bunch of bald-faced liars. There is no way on this God's green earth that rents have only gone up 1.3%. So you've got to kind of take this information with definitely a touch of disbelief, because I don't believe a word that these people are saying. It's all manipulative bollocks, quite frankly. So I believe that you should be out there looking and seeing with your own 2 eyes, if you've got that many eyes. You should be out there looking and seeing what's happening and making your own decisions based on your own education and so on. And so one of the things that you should be doing as we move into 2022 is that you need to increase your level of education. So it's like, what books are you going to read? And by the way, I struggle reading books these days. I've got a Kindle. I keep thinking I'm going to read it, and then I never do. And then I read a page, and my attention span is dreadful. And I think I'm probably going to have to go back to like physical page books rather than Kindle books, so I can see how long it is, and I can work my way through the book. But your increasing knowledge is going to pay off dividends, because you're going to be able to put together this disparate pieces of information and make up your own plan for how you're moving forward into 2022 and then 2023 and 2024. This is down to you. No help is coming, folks. The government, Boris is not coming in on his white horse, waving a flag, coming in to help you. If anything, he's coming in on a white horse with a shotgun to blow your dreams apart, because that's what this government does, and you're going to have to deal with that in some way. You're going to have to take responsibility, and I know a lot of people who watch this show and listen to this show actually do, which is awesome, but it's now time to step up to that next level. Right now, somebody somewhere is making an awful lot of money, and somebody somewhere is petrified and don't move, and the deer in the headlights, this may be you in fact, and you're not sure which way to go, and so you're just waiting. And I think if you're just waiting, you're losing a trick. You're missing out on a trick there. You've got to move. And so 2022, if you've not got a side hustle, bear in mind earlier on we were talking about long hours shouldn't be normalised, but if you've not got a side hustle, you need a side hustle. But it's got to be a smart side hustle. It can't be something that's exchanging time for money. So for example, a really good side hustle would be something like creating a training course. So you have to work to create the training course, and then when you've got the training course, it's yours forever. Like you can sell it with our property sourcing training course. You know, we made a couple of sales this morning, for example. I made that course in February last year, 18 months ago, and today we still make money off that. That's one of the income streams as a millionaire that you also should have. You know, millionaires have like 7 different income streams. Capital gains, training courses, intellectual rights, and so on, right? So that's what you've got to be doing. Rental income, dividends, stocks and shares. So you've got to get a side hustle of some kind, and you're going to have to start to learn to create additional income away from your job, because your job's also not going to come to save you. What else has 2022 got in store? Inflation is going to erode your income. Let me rephrase that. Inflation is going to erode your spending power. That's a better way of saying it. Because, you know, the things that was costing a pound will cost you £1.20 or £1.05 according to, because it's only 4 or 5% is inflation, which, let's face it, we know that that's not the case. Look at how much fuel has gone up. A bag of cement went from £5 to £20. You know, that's not a 5% inflation increase, is it? And obviously wages are also going to increase as well, hopefully in 2022. But just because you're getting a wage increase doesn't mean you're getting a pay rise, because inflation is eroding that. So what else can we do for 2022? I think now is the time to look at where is the planet heading. So there's a couple of big things going on. Cryptocurrency, obviously, but you need some spare cash to be able to put into it. Maybe you could do some trading and that kind of thing. So let's just go back to trading for a second. Right now, behind this monitor, behind the camera, I've got 2 screens set up with my Forex trades on there, and I'm just testing a new Forex trade strategy, and it seems to be working. I don't know how many pips it is, but I'm about 300 pips up from last week, which is really good, right? Continually testing new ways of generating bigger, longer term income. That's what we do. What is it that you can do in terms of generating additional income? Like, where are we going? What about NFTs? One guy just sold an NFT for like $60 million. Beeple, he's called. And don't get me wrong, he's very good as an artist. Not something I could do in any way stretch of the imagination. But NFTs are a thing. What about autonomy of driving? What about Tesla and what they're doing? Is there something you can invest in there? Is there a product or service that you can provide to allow people to go down this path? The world is changing, folks. So there's this thing called a singularity. So technology is moving to this point, okay? So it's like reaches this point, and at that point becomes a singularity. This is where in Terminator Skynet takes over, because it's reached the singularity and Skynet becomes self-aware. Now, I don't think we're going to have self-awareness AI, and if we do, we'll be able to switch it off. But I do think that technology-wise, we're reaching this certain point. Beforehand, we've already spoken about the metaverse and how you can take advantage of that. And one of the things that we're thinking about is how can we, as a graphic design agency or a social media agency, take greater advantage of the metaverse and enable people to demonstrate their perception in the marketplace much better than they currently are. Having images at the top and down the side, arrows that move up and down, nice lighting at the back. I mean, literally today, I just pulled the trigger and spent £1,500 on a new PC and some extra lighting and some extra monitors to upgrade the system. Because as we're moving into the metaverse, we want to improve our perception. We want better lighting, for example. We've got a decent microphone. The camera at some point, which is just a Logitech 920, that's probably going to get improved. We'll spend, in a couple of months, we'll spend £1,000 on a decent camera specifically for live streaming, so the quality is much better. So we're always moving forward and improving that from a metaverse point of view. But take a look at, and by the way, I can't it's not for me to say what you should be going into. Like, this is why you should be reading. When cryptocurrency came out, I went to Waterstones and bought every single book that they had on cryptocurrency. All 3 of them, in fact. In 2017, which is late to the game. Obviously, most people watching this don't even own crypto, so it's not late to the game for them. We're actually still very early on for crypto. But your job should be to get all the disparate pieces of information and then start making the connections between these, and that will determine where you go. And that's something that we've always done for the last, I'd say, 20 years, since the age of 30, really. In fact, 20 years in May was when I gave up work for the very last time. Last time I had an employer, so I was 29, just going into my 30th birthday, which is in July. So one of my roles for the last 20 years is to make all these disparate connections and then come up with my own ideas about where to go next. And actually, you know what? We've done pretty well at that. But that's only because we've put the effort in, we've read the books, and we've listened to the podcasts, and we've watched for people who are able to make a difference in other people's lives, like the Grant Cardones and the Gary V's and so on and so forth, and the Elon Musks. And we've seen what they're doing, and then going, okay, how can we then use that to generate income for us, that we can then move into long-term wealth through property and stocks and shares and crypto and that kind of thing. So 2022 is going to be really exciting, I think. There's a lot of change going on right now. And like we say, if you're not adapting with that change, you're going to get left behind. You are going to be the dinosaur that gets left behind. And obviously we don't want that. Okay. Next up, there's always going to be winners and there's always going to be losers. Your job is to choose which side of that you want to be on. So I was watching on Twitter, and I was looking through people having a go at landlords. It's something I quite enjoy doing every so often because I'm interested in what are people thinking? Why are they thinking this particular thing? And then you get onto all the abuse as well. So landlords are parasites, we're a cancer, all that stuff is what gets talked about, which is really interesting, I always find. Imagine going up to someone and saying you're a parasite. Like, you'd never say that to someone's face. And by the way, if you did say that to my face, that would get quite interesting. So, but they never do that, of course, because the keyboard warriors hiding behind a keyboard. But what's interesting is they say things like, oh, you had no value. And it's like, oh, well, try telling that to a family with a roof above their head. And sure, some landlords are not great, but generally most landlords are fine. And according to Arla, I think it was, or the NLA, 82% of tenants are happy with their property. So there's always going to be bad elements like the police and the doctors and landlords and estate agents and butchers and plumbers and whatever else. But what side of that equation do you want to be on? This is the question for me. Do you want to hate Elon Musk and go, well, I detest Elon, and never put any money into stocks and shares? Like, that could be you if that's what you want to do. It's not a problem. But I'd rather be on the side that goes, you know what, I'm going to hang on to Elon's coattails. I'm going to ride that wave with him to see where it takes us. Because I think, there's a lot going on there. And people go, cryptocurrency, that's pants, it's rubbish, it'll never take off. Maybe. But I'd like to put some money into that and ride that coattails and see where that takes us. There's going to be winners, there's going to be losers. And 23 years ago, I think it is, I saw what was happening with buy-to-let mortgages. I saw what was happening in that marketplace, and I put money into that, and I put a lot of money into that. I hung on to the coattails, and here we are 20 years later. Rents have shot up, property prices have gone up, although not so much where I am, but they've definitely increased. But, rents, I look at where we are 10 years ago, rents are about 34%, I think. Might be slightly wrong, but about 30-odd% above where they used to be just 10 years ago. So let's take another 10 years on that. So over a 20-year period, let me do the maths in my head. So if it was, without telling you the information, so if it was that would be that. It would almost have doubled effectively over the next 10 years. So over a 20-year period, rents would have more or less doubled. We knew, we could see it happening. We knew what was going to happen. And we've had ups and downs on that journey as well. We've had days where we thought, I hate it, let's just sell it all. I can't cope with it. These bloody tenants not paying. Cannabis farms, passed out through drug use. I mean, we've had everything that you could think of. We've had kitchens removed. I mean, we've had it all. But, through those ups and downs, we've kept on to it. And it's about this question, what side of this equation do you want to be on? Do you want to be on a winner's side? Do you want to be on a loser's side? It's really easy to say, oh, landlords are parasites. Really, really easy. But is that going to look after you and your family into your 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s and hundreds and 110s? Because that's how long we're going to live, folks. In the next 30 years, I'm not dying at 80. I'm dying at 100, 101, 110. And the average age right now, I think, is like 76 for men. Is it 83 for women or something? I don't know, 78 for women. I don't know what it is. But where do you think that's going to be in another 30 years? The average age will be 95. And the wealthier you are, and the better access to medical help, and the more money you can spend on self-care and self-management, the healthier you're going to be and the longer you're going to live. Like, that's not even controversial, I would say. I mean, the concept of being more wealthy and therefore being able to live long, that's controversial. But what side do you want to be on? Do you want to be wealthy and live longer, or do you want to be poor and live shorter? Well, I want to be wealthy and live longer. Great. Well, this is what you need to do. And grab hold of those coattails, put your money in, and ride the wave. That's exactly what you should be doing. There are always going to be winners and losers. In the HS2 debacle, there are winners and losers. There are people who are going to make a lot of money because HS2 is no longer going ahead up in the Leeds area. And one poor woman had to sell her, she called it her dream home. She had to sell her dream home to make way for HS2, which is no longer now going ahead. So they've taken a house, obviously, not for free, they've paid her for it, but it was her dream home. It's where she wanted to live and die for the rest of her life. She was only in her 50s or something. Winners and losers. And for me, it's about, where do you need to be? Where do you need to position yourself so that you can win as often as you can? Not just as often, but where you're going to be to position yourself to win big. Cryptocurrency, where do you need to be? Have you got Bitcoin? Have you got SHIB? Have you got Ethereum? And people go, yeah, but what if it goes to zero? Fine, let it go to zero. First of all, I'll be buying more at zero. That's why it won't go to zero. Some do, by the way. We had Squid Game's token that went up and down like in a period of days. But something more mainstream like SHIB or Ethereum or Ripple or Bitcoin, that's not going to zero. Well, I don't think it is. Not financial advice. Who on earth knows? I'd rather stick some money in that and ride the wave, grab onto the coattails and ride that wave and see where that's going. And maybe it does end up at zero. That's fine. It's money that we've worked hard for, that we've now generated an income from, that we can put into that. And actually, we're lucky because over the last 23 years, our income now comes from the properties that we rent out. That money is now making money. So I don't even generate that cash. The asset generates the cash. Whatever that asset happens to be, it could be a property, it could be stocks and shares, it could be an ISA, it could be investments we made into Tesla and then sold via an ISA. So tax-free gains, which is what we did. We paid a tax bill using tax-free gains from Tesla because we put it through an ISA. This is about you positioning yourself to be a winner or to be a loser. If you eat Coca-Cola, donuts, pizza, chocolate every day, popcorn for the rest of your life, where do you think you're going to be? Do you think you're going to be a winner in the health stakes or a loser? It's obvious. You've got to pick a side. And sometimes picking a side is really hard. Don't get me wrong. I mean, my health right now, I have moments where I'm riding it high and then moments where I'm like, oh, just give me the pizza, please, and donuts. Oh, donuts. Just let me have a bath in chocolate custard. Just give me all of it, But is that going to put me on the side of being a winner or the side of being a loser when it comes to health? And the answer's obvious. It's obvious. People who work two jobs, you got to, at some point, reach the stage where you go, I'm working all these hours and this money's coming in. Where is the money going to? And, a winner or a loser? Have you got a spreadsheet and a budget? Winner? Or have you not? Loser. That's it. It's really black and white. I suppose there's shades of grey as there is in anything. And accidents can happen, and mishaps can happen, and circumstances can change, and so on. What, but for the rest of your life? You telling me that you can't adapt this to be more winnery than losery? Okay, I've made those words up, but you know what I mean. Of course you can do all that stuff. But you got to reach a point where you're making a decision on, do I want to be on the winner's side? Do I want to be on the loser's side? Whatever that is. And there's only so many areas in life. It's probably 4 or 5 different areas. Tell you what they are. You've got money. You've got wealth. You got relationships. You got religion, spirituality, I don't know, whatever you want, universe, whatever you want to call that. You got relationships with kids. You got relationships with friends. You got relationships with spouse. You've got, did I say health? You got health. Like, what else is it? That's it, right? There's only like 5 or 6 different areas that you can work on. And so grab a sheet of paper. Are you winning in this area or are you losing? And if you're losing, work out what steps do I need to take. Well, I need to save more. I need to budget more. I need to eat, out of 4 donuts every day that I eat, maybe if I cut that down to 1 and actually start tracking calories to see how many calories I'm actually eating. So if I'm eating 3,000 calories, can I drop that down to 2,500 calories? Doesn't have to be anything major. A couple of 100 calories less every single day. Like literally for men, you're supposed to eat 2,500 calories, right? When you start recording how many calories you eat, and let's say you are eating 2,500 calories, and you use something like MyFitnessPal, which is an app on your phone, MyFitnessPal. You literally record everything that goes into your mouth, and it will tell you how many calories there are. Really cool. It's got a barcode scanner, so you can just scan stuff. Really easy. So if you're on 2,500 and you want to lose weight, drop it down to 2,200 and stick to that. Then just run 2 minutes a day, 3 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. Lift some weights. You will see the changes happen very, very slowly over the next 3 to 5 years. Is that you winning or is that you losing? Oh, you're in the winning section. It doesn't even have to be these big, grandiose things that you're doing. Just pop £100 a month away in your 20s. £200 a month away in your 30s, 300 in your 40s, 400 in your 50s, 500 into your 60s, up to the age of 65. You're going to be minted. You're going to be absolutely minted. You retire at 65, and not just surviving at 65, but you'll be living the life. You'll be travelling all over the place while you still can. These small changes over a long period of time will turn you into a winner or a loser, and it's up to you which one you actually want. Anyway, I hope that's useful for you in today's session. We'll catch up. We'll be live again tomorrow, and we'll catch up with you guys tomorrow. My name's Dan Latto. Take care.